Happy Monday and welcome in to the opening line report. Kelly Stewart here, fresh off an NFL Week 13. We're going to find out what we learned. We're going to talk a little Monday Night Football with Teddy Covers, and then we're going to get right into that NFL Week 14 slate. Teddy, I give up. I know nothing. I did take the Dolphins yesterday in Survivor, so maybe I know a little something, but good grief. We'll get into that game here in a minute. There's just so much to unpack. Who's good, who's not good. Teams that have superseded expectations, teams who have fallen from grace. I'm just going to let you take the floor.
So the headline that I came up with for Week 13 was, quote, the year where nobody's real. All we saw throughout the course of the weekend was, oh, this elite team got upset. Oh, that elite team got upset. But that's been the case all year. I mean, New England, no one believes in. Buffalo, no one believes in. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Indy, Denver, the Chargers, the Texans, the Chiefs, Eagles. Oh, no, they're vulnerable. Dallas is live now. Chicago, the number 1 seed. Green Bay. Do we trust them? Well, yes and no. Some weeks we do. Detroit's falling apart. But, the Tampa, the Rams lost as double-digit favorites. Seattle, San Francisco. The year where no one's real. Lots of contenders. Everything is wide open.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some contenders. We're also going to talk about some pretenders. Teddy, let's talk about Monday Night Football. This New England Patriots team is just hard for me to understand, right? They are superseding expectations all season long. New York Giants, after they beat the Eagles there on that Thursday night game, we thought, okay, maybe, just maybe, they're real. Cam Scatterboo gets hurt. Jackson Dart gets hurt. Jackson Dart will be playing tonight, correct?
That's the expectation. Jackson Dart's been taking the first-string snaps in practice all week. Jackson Dart expected back on the field. And that, of course, is why this line is 7 and not higher. Looking, of course, at the Odds Logic live odds screen. Mostly 7s out there for the Pats. 46.5 the prevailing total for this one. I'm not anticipating a lot of movement between now and kickoff. There's certainly a case to be made for the Giants. The Giants have played competitive football all year long, and with Dart coming back, that is certainly a motivator for a losing team at the tail end of a bad season or towards the end of a bad season. And the Giants have shown they can play competitively with a lot of squads. That being said, there's been a lot of disrespect towards New England because of the schedule that they faced. Okay, well, first, the Giants aren't any good. And second, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. The Pats were good enough to go to Tampa and win. They were good enough to go to Buffalo and win. And all of a sudden, now they get a national TV home game to say, hey, we're real. We're the number 1 seed in the AFC. I could see a blowout, and I could see a competitive game, and that's why I'm passing.
And it's okay to pass sometimes, guys. That is something that is okay, even though it is 14 weeks into the NFL season, and it is a Monday Night Football game, and everybody's antsy to either continue winning or not. Dallas, Detroit on Thursday Night Football, Teddy. I mentioned pretenders. We mentioned Detroit's recent struggles, at least against the spread, and then most recently on Thanksgiving. Dallas Cowboys, though, I don't know. I said a couple of weeks ago I like this team as a barking dog. Now, here they are. Are they barking once again?
Yeah, before we get into Thursday night, there's just a couple of things I want to clean up. Buys this week: Carolina, New England, the Giants, San Fran. After this week, every team in the league will have exactly 4 games left. So this is the final week for buys. And this is I think the single weirdest season for NFL win totals that I've ever had, Kelly. Every win total decided by December 1st. Unfortunately, this has not been a winning year for the NFL season win report, finishing with a 2-4 record. The 5% big ticket was a loser in 2025. Seattle flown over the total. That being said, 105-56 since 2001, 17-5 big tickets. This won't happen again next year. And it is what it is with the win totals. Chalk-eating weasels. We got to talk about the chalk-eating weasels. The Jags won by 22. San Fran won by 18. Seattle won by 26. The Chargers won by 17. The chalk-eating weasels are the one who are covering of late. Dogs winning outright: Houston and Indy, Carolina and LA, the Jets versus Atlanta, And of course, favorites win, but no cover. Tampa, Miami, and Denver in that regard. Of course, all the dogs Thursday and Friday, not just covered. They all won straight up: Green Bay, Dallas, Cincinnati, and Chicago. All right, let's turn the page on last week and talk about this week. And that starts with Dallas and Detroit. With every week, you guys know the drill. You've been coming into the opening line report, and we really appreciate all of your support. People love this show, and the comments are positive uniformly. Thank you, genuinely. But for those of you who this might be your first opening line report, there are 4 sets of lines we give for every game. The first is a look-ahead line. These are the bettable lines for Week 14 games from last week. They call them look-ahead lines, and that tells us how much this past game affected the point spread. The second number I'll give is my powering number. The third number I'll give, and my powering number is just Team A, Team B, home field. It does not factor in situations at all. I'll talk about where the line opened last night, and I'll talk about where the line has moved from the opener until this morning, so we can get a sense of where this line is going. That gives us an opportunity for some emergency betting. I don't know how many we're going to have today. Later in the season, you don't see the markets moving quite as dramatically as they did early in the season. The data is pretty well baked in. The bookmakers know where the money's likely to go. But we could have a handful. Let's see where the screen lights up like a Christmas tree between now and the end of the show. So with Dallas and Detroit, look ahead line. There was a mix. There were 3s and 3.5s for the Lions. Total 53.5. My powering number comes 3.5. The markets last night opened 3 and 54, and we're seeing 3 and 53.5 this morning. So no dramatic move. Pretty much the look ahead line, my powering, and the openers are all the opener and the current are pretty close. Certainly, Dallas has played some good football over the last couple of weeks. When you're beating both teams that were in the Super Bowl last year over a 5-day span, you're doing something right. You know, obviously the passing game, CD Lamb, Dak Prescott, 320 yards on 8.2 yards per pass attempt against Kansas City. But Lamb and Pickens, the duo, is proving to be as dangerous as expected. But the defense is what's going on here. You know, I mean, obviously you bring in Quinn and Williams, you bring in Logan Wilson, trade deadline deals, and a bunch, rookie cornerback, Chevron Revel's playing well. There's a whole defensive mentality in Dallas right now that hasn't been there all year and is allowing them to win games. And of course, let's not forget the NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion in 21 years. Dallas is saying we're live to do something. You know, Dak Prescott, quote, talking about this game, on top of where we put ourselves right before these games, just a place we're in, having to get these wins against 2 elite teams, 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. Last year, but we're talking about 2 organizations that obviously know how to win, and we just beat them both in 2 great games. So they're kind of going for the trifecta as they travel to Detroit on a short week here. Lions started 4-1. They're 3-4 since. Longest winning streak during that span, 1 game. Last 8 games, win-loss, 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 win-loss. And of course, they are coming up a lot. Lions off a loss has been money for the last 3 years, 3-1 against the spread this year. The only one they didn't cover, they still won by a touchdown, but they were laying 2 touchdowns against the G-Men. They're not laying that here. Concerns for the Lions? Absolutely right now. Defense against Green Bay, 0 sacks, 0 turnovers forced, only 1 tackle for loss the whole game. They allowed 3 of 3 on 4th down. They allowed 2 of 2 red zone touchdowns. Those are not positive signs for a defense. You know, they're going to get Frank Ragnow back as the 4-time Pro Bowl center. Oops, he didn't pass his physical. Their starting center, Graham Glasnow, is inactive again. He's hurt. There are issues on the offensive line right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a real playmaker where they have Brown on the one side, St. Brown on the one side, and Williams on the other side. That's a really tough duo to stop. Without him, the offense is, we don't know. Dan Campbell, quote, I don't think it's long-term. It might be a week or 2 if we're lucky. And of course, let's not forget, Dan Campbell took over play calling duties in week 10. They were averaging 30 points a game during that span. They're not averaging 30 points a game since he started calling plays. And they're 0 for 7 on 4th down since week 11. Dan Campbell continues to go for it, and the Lions continue to fail.
All right, a couple of other teams that are failing. Washington is taking on Minnesota. One of these teams has to win a game. And Teddy, there's a lot of really gross matchups over the next 4 weeks of just teams where we've kind of got to figure out, are they playing? Do they care? It's kind of iffy, right? Minnesota yesterday, I wanted to take Seattle in Survivor. And Brett said, well, we don't know anything about this kid. And I said, you're right, I don't. And I start reading about him. I'm like, this kid's going to get his doors blown off. And the first series, I thought, all right, Max, he didn't look so bad. And then he did what rookies do. As you're getting sacked, you throw an interception, pick six, and the game was over right after that. Kind of talk about where you're looking for in any of these games where teams maybe have 1, 2, 3 wins on the season. And how do we actually break down anything outside of a mathematical perspective?
It's key to note that while an organization may say, we want the number 1 pick, in the NBA, they're happy taking. The players, all right, yeah. We'll play hard for 3.5 quarters, and you guys can play defense in the fourth, and we won't. It'll be fine. In the NFL, that doesn't really happen. There aren't many scenarios. There are games where the players check out, and we saw that yesterday for Minnesota. It was a rough game for the Vikings, no question. But conceptually, for the season, these guys are still fighting hard. They're still putting stuff on film for the next team. If they're leaving, they're still putting stuff on film for the coaching staff. It's not often that you see a team just completely let go of the rope. And I haven't seen that from either one of these two teams. Minnesota had a really bad game yesterday, but it's not like this team has said, all right, we're completely done. And also remember, when you're like, oh, they're playing for draft position, the better the draft choices that come in, the more guys lose their job on that team. So there's a pretty good motivator not to tank for a draft position, because then you're tanking for the guy who's going to come in and take your job. So I don't see that, the effort's not an issue for the NFL down the stretch. The owner might want to lose. The players don't, and the coaches don't. Look ahead line here. Minnesota -1.5, 43.5. My powering number has the Vikings -0.5 point. I call it 1/pick. The markets opened with Washington as the favorite. I saw picks. I saw ones. I see 1.5s right now. Total 41.5, 42 this morning. There are questions about both quarterbacks. There is talk that we could see Jaden Daniels come back this next week. And from a J.J. McCarthy perspective, the quote, J.J. McCarthy could emerge from concussion protocol as soon as Monday. Kevin O'Connell, quote, he's still in the protocol as of right now. We'll see how he does tomorrow. Our goal is he clears and he have a good week of practice and an opportunity to play next week. Now, Max Brosmer, if you did watch him as a Minnesota Golden Gopher, you knew that he wasn't likely to be an NFL star. The pick six, it was on 4th down where he was trying to make a play. So I get it. But as soon as he threw the ball, you're like, oh, and then as soon as he caught it and started running the other way, you're like, well, see you next week, Minnesota. The game felt over at 10-0, and it was. Justin Jefferson, 2 catches for 4 yards. 4th shutout this season in the NFL. Tennessee, the Raiders, and Atlanta, the 3 previous teams to get shut out. None of those teams are any good. And of course, but if J.J. McCarthy comes back, McCarthy in 6 starts has the NFL's worst QBR among 33 quarterbacks who have started at least 6 games. Minnesota has to put him in to see what he can do. And of course, Washington's played hard the last 2 weeks. They've taken a pair of teams to overtime, and now they have back-to-back overtime losses, 7-game losing streak. And the quotes coming out of Washington, we're real happy. Mariota, quote, we're going in the right direction. It's not exactly where we want to be, but I think putting together a great week of practice, I think we just continue to stack these overtime losses. Regardless of what it looks like for us, it's all about the process and the journey. And the more we can find ways to improve week to week, I think that sets a solid foundation for what's to come. All right. Dan Quinn took over the defensive play calling duties 2 games ago, and their defense has been better. They allowed only 42 points in those ball games. Terry McLaurin came back. Dan Quinn, another positive quote. There was progress that was made. Certainly in the run game, we got plenty of room to grow in that. Hate the outcome, but I do love the fight and where we're at. So you don't usually see positive quotes like that from a team that's 3-9 in the midst of a disastrous season and on a 7-game losing streak. Nonetheless, Washington pleased with back-to-back overtime losses.
Pleased with back-to-back overtime losses. That sounds crazy to say out loud. A team that has won, I believe, 5 of their last 6 and helped me somehow survive yesterday, Teddy. I cannot believe that onside kick about gave me a heart attack. And Johnny Detroit, too, he had him. And I was texting, I'm going to lose my mind, but they got the job done. Now they play the New York Jets. Hey, the Jets got a win for me yesterday. Nick Folk's field goal I was like, what was that? And it still somehow went.
Yeah.
It looked like I kicked it and it went up through the uprights. So not a bad day yesterday for me from these two teams.
Y'all going to make me lose my mind up in here. Miami, look ahead line, -3, 41.5. My powering number, Miami 2. The markets opened 2.5 and 41 last night. The markets this morning, 2.5, 40.5. And Tua had a rough day yesterday, 12 completions, no touchdowns, only 1 interception. He's thrown for less than 200 yards 7 times this year. Last 3 seasons, threw for less than 200 7 times combined. It was all the A-chain, 134 rushing yards versus New Orleans. They went over 2 in the red zone. They have won 4 of their last 5. They're averaging 167 rushing yards per game during that span. And remember, last year they started 2-6, and they went 6-2 their next 8. We're seeing exactly that same scenario under McDaniel. Teams don't quit. All right. Mika Fitzpatrick, quote, I really appreciate how much this defense has been fighting. We obviously had a pretty rough start to the season. Even throughout our downs and our low periods, we were sticking together. As for the Jets, hey, the Jets are 3-2 in their last 5 games. And the losses to the Pats and the Ravens, no shame there. Jets have better record since the trade deadline than the Colts do. And the Colts were the ones that got Sauce Gardner. A.D. Mitchell has already established himself as a solid player. And, of course, with Garrett Wilson on the injury reserve, he was their best offensive weapon yesterday. Tyrod Taylor, officially in the serviceable category. You talk about folks' field goal to win. There were some ugly field goals that went through yesterday. But Taylor, quote, it felt amazing. It wasn't a perfect game by any means. We speak about our brand of football and being complimentary to one another in all 3 phases. I think this was the perfect game to show that. The Jets haven't played much complimentary football this year. Folks' field goal put the third, offense, defense, and special teams, the icing on the cake in that regard. And Jets with a chance to win 2 in a row for the first time this season. And my powering number says there's a little bit of value at the current price.
There's a lot of value for me here in a teaser perspective for the Jets. I'll take it probably and run. Teddy, there's 2 more teams. We're just going to get through this rough stretch here on the odds logic screen. Tennessee, 1 win on the season. Cleveland got 1 win there versus the Raiders. A lot of people backed him yesterday. I know huge steam came in on Cleveland early in the week with no avail. I was not impressed by this Cleveland Browns team in the slightest. I feel like they didn't quit per se. They weren't able to get anything going against the Niners. Is that more of a testament to this Niners team?
A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. What was wrong with Cleveland yesterday was their special team. Their special teams had a truly disastrous day. When you're a bad team as an underdog, what you can't do is take kickoffs, run out of bounds at the 5-yard line. You can't muff punts. There were 3 different special teams miscues for Cleveland yesterday, all of which led to San Francisco points. And you can't do that. And, of course, when things went south, they went south. The Browns aren't a team that's really capable. When it's almost like the sense of we talked about the Minnesota being down 10-0 and the game's over. Cleveland's not a team that's going to rally from any double-digit deficits. They did it once this year. That was when Joe Flacco was at QB. Look at line here. Browns -3.5, 34.5. Look at that total. My powering number is Cleveland 4.5 for this ball game, which tells you what I think about Tennessee. Markets open. There were 3.5s and 4s last night. 33.5 this total. And that's what we're seeing this morning. 3.5s and 4s. I don't think the market's going up. When you look at Cleveland, I'm not saying that I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to go, yeah, let's lay 4 with the Browns and ask them to win by 5 or more. So that means, Dan, this is one where we can actually get together and put an emergency betting alert in place, even though my powering number said this should be higher. If you want the Titans, you can get a +4 now. I'm not convinced it's going to be there later in the week. So Tennessee plus the 4. And it's another game for Tennessee where just bizarre game plan. Cam Ward, 41 dropbacks to pass. In those 41 dropbacks, he netted 121 yards. And they ran the ball 14 times. 67 yards rushing. They ran the ball effectively, and they just didn't do it much. I've said it all year. I continue to say it. The issue in Tennessee is an offensive line problem. And Ward now has 10 games this season in which he's been sacked at least 3 times. The only quarterback in NFL history to be sacked more than 3 times in more than 10 games in a season. Warren Moon in 1984. So it doesn't happen a lot. Defense didn't force any turnovers. They didn't hold Jacksonville to 2.6 yards per rush and 4.8 yards per play. But remember, Tennessee's supposed to be an 0-12 team right now. Their only win came in Arizona. That was a game where the Cardinals were up 21-6, and DeMarcado had the 72-yard touchdown where let's put the ball over the goal line and say, let's fumble it through the end zone. And Tennessee stole it, 22-21. Arizona gave it to them. That's the only win they have this year. 7th straight loss, 11th consecutive loss at home. The fans, booing early and often for Tennessee. I think it's good for them to get out of town. Mike McCoy, we got to do a better job all around. It was sloppy.
And now I'm sloppy because I'm over here looking on the odds logic screen trying to figure out what other teasers I'm going to be putting with the Jets. Let's go right into an AFC North matchup. This one's going to be interesting. I know Errol Epstein is excited for this breakdown because boy, oh boy, did the Baltimore Ravens break her heart, a ton of Survivor backers' hearts, and everybody who had them in the teasers, like myself. Teddy, the Steelers looked abysmal yesterday, right? Aaron Rodgers looked like he was about to be 42 today. And the Baltimore Ravens did not look much better. I thought maybe they'd be able to get the running game going with Derrick Henry just a little bit more. Had some short bursts, but overall, neither one of these teams looks like they want to win the AFC North, let alone are going to.
I'm sure they both want to. The question is, how good are they and how healthy are they and how capable are they? Look ahead line here. Baltimore, 6.5, 46.5 the total. My powering number, Baltimore, 6. And I gave the Ravens a fairly significant downgrade after the loss on Thursday night. Powering number, the markets opened 6.5, 43.5 last night. And we're sitting with a mixed line now, 6/6.5, 43.5 this morning. And it's an injury question for both. Well, certainly for Baltimore. I mean, they had won 5 in a row, but Lamar Jackson hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in the last 2. Jackson is clearly playing, but he's very hurt. All right. The guy can't run. He has the fewest career rushing yards in his season as a rookie, 695. He's got more than 6,000 yards since then, better than 6 yards per carry, full career. This year, again, his fewest in a season is 695. This year, he's got 264, and 70 of those came in week 1. So he's got under 200 yards rushing since week 1. He's been on the injury report with 3 different injuries, knee, ankle, toe, over the past 3 weeks. He's missed practice every week during this span. His quote, "I can't describe the level of frustration. I'm ticked off. Turnovers are a big part of winning or losing games. Turning the ball over and giving them extra possessions pushes the outcome." That being said, Baltimore still outgained Cincy by 1.3 yards per play. Bengals defense wasn't any good. But when you have a dynamic quarterback who's all of a sudden not so dynamic, your team isn't nearly as good, and that's the case for Baltimore. As for Pittsburgh, how mad were they yesterday? They were booing Renegade. I've never heard them boo Renegade. Pittsburgh now 2-5 their last 7 games. All right. We all know Tomlin Steelers have never finished season with a losing record. They had 90 yards of offense through 3 quarters. They couldn't run against Buffalo. They couldn't stop the run against Buffalo. They couldn't stop the same play from being run over and over and over again successfully against Buffalo. They spent all week talking about we're going to stop the run. And they gave up 16 rushing first downs. That's the most the Steelers have allowed in a game this century. And you talked about it. Aaron Rodgers turns 42 on Tuesday. He looked ancient in the cold on Sunday. 117 passing yards. And, of course, managed to throw his receivers under the bus after the game. Mason Rudolph came in after Rodgers had the sacks, fumble 6, and went 0-3 passing with a bad interception. Rodgers said it right. We got to flush this one. And maybe circle the wagons time for Pittsburgh. I know this. I'm not in a rush to lay with Baltimore this week. I'm concerned about the Ravens' offensively and their capabilities with a limited Lamar Jackson right now.
Teddy, I'm sure you are not alone in your synopsis on thinking that maybe Sam Darnold was not going to be the savior in Seattle, but it appears that maybe he is. This week they take on the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins got a win for his team yesterday. Break down this one for us.
Look ahead line, Seattle minus 7.5, total 43.5. My powering number is only 6.5 for the Seahawks. And I've got Seattle ranked pretty high right now and Atlanta ranked pretty low, but I don't think I have the markets as low. I'm not quite as low on Atlanta as the markets, perhaps. Markets opened 7.5, 43.5 last night, and we're even seeing some 8s out there this morning. 43.5 still holding as the total. Sam Darnold was pretty awful yesterday. The offense didn't really work. You know, the questions Sam Darnold versus defenses that know him or good defenses, those haven't been answered successfully. They had 219 total yards on 3.5 yards per play in a game where the defense pitched a shutout and forced 5 turnovers. That being said, read these quotes about the defense. DeMarcus Lawrence. And I mean this wholeheartedly. But there's another level we're going to reach. You haven't seen the best of us. We're going to capitalize on opportunities. This is the best defense I've played on in my 12 NFL seasons. That's DeMarcus Lawrence. Sam Darnold, quote, it's unbelievable we have a defense like this, just consistently. For us as an offense, especially me personally, like I hate putting them in positions to where I'm getting a sack, a fumble, the defense is recovering it. Now all of a sudden they're down to the red zone. But with that type of defense, Seattle can have games like they did yesterday from Sam Darnold and company and still win. Raheem Morris, I mean, he crashed and burned as Tampa Bay head coach. It was a disaster there. It got worse every year. His third year he didn't make it through. A decade later, he got a second try as a head coach, and boy, we're seeing more of the same. Atlanta's 1-6 straight up their last 7. The only win came against the Saints. 2-5 ATS during this span. Bijan Robinson had 142 rushing yards. Kirk Cousins didn't throw a pick. Atlanta scored 3 touchdowns and 3 red zone tries. Only had 1 penalty. The Jets had 9. You're supposed to win those games. And they had the ball in a tie game, a chance to win. They punted instead and gave the Jets enough time to score. That's on the coach. Not well done. Falcons, not a team the market's excited about right now, and that explains the difference, perhaps, between my powering number and the current market. But all we're seeing is Seattle money right now, early in the week.
Yeah, I kind of don't blame everybody. Seattle in a teaser looks pretty easy to take and not have to stress. We'll see how that one ends up panning out for me. Another teaser team, Jacksonville, back at home, now playing Indianapolis. Teddy, Indianapolis was one of those teams that started off red hot. I'm not saying they fizzled out just yet, but is that what we're kind of seeing? Did they, quote unquote, peak too early?
No, I think they just had a bad game yesterday. That said, the Jags are playing good football. Look ahead line here, Indy 48.5. My powering number comes Jags -1 in this game. Maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse with Jacksonville. And all Jacksonville do it, I'll talk about in a minute. Up every week in my power range, pretty much, of late. So I got Jags -1. The markets opened Indy -1.5, 47.5 last night. And again, looking at that Odds Logic live odds screen, I'm seeing 1.5. I'm seeing 1.5 with juice. I'm seeing even a 2 out there for the Colts. Total sitting there at 47.5. Yes, they've lost 3 of their last 4. The concern for Indy right now, just like the concern for Baltimore, we talk about Lamar Jackson being well less than 100%. Daniel Jones is playing hurt, and it's pretty clear, And because he's playing hurt, what are we seeing? Opposing teams are putting all kinds of pressure on him. The recent trends of Colts opponents sending extra rushers and blitzing Jones, an area where he excelled earlier in the season. Well, there's been limitation in this. He's limited right now. Only 1 pass attempt outside the pocket on Sunday. That's the fewest that he's had all year. He never scrambled despite the constant pass rush, and there's nobody behind him. You have Anthony Richardson, who had the facial fracture. He's not playing. And then you have the rookie backup, Riley Leonard. So it's Danny Dimes. Michael Pittman, the wide receiver, quote, we knew he's tough about the decision to be playing, so we've got to keep going. Danny Dimes. I definitely expect a high sense of urgency and guys being ready, eager to correct what we need to correct. No one's losing confidence, but we know what we have to do. The stadium in Jacksonville has been a house of horrors for Indy. They haven't won there since 2014. And the Jags now 4-1 straight up their last 5. The only game they lost during that span was a game they led at Houston 29-10 going into the fourth and then fell apart. Now, they couldn't run the football yesterday, but Trevor Lawrence played a clean game. The defense held Tennessee to 3.4 yards per play. They didn't turn the ball over. Now, they had 13 penalties. It wasn't clean everywhere. But Trevor Lawrence, I love this quote after the game. We're happy we won. No doubt about that. We came here to win, and that's what we did. But even to have that feeling of like, man, just didn't finish clean, I think that shows the maturity of this team too. Bad injury report for Jacksonville after the game. That's probably why Indy's the chalk right here. And my number maybe didn't factor in all the injuries because I don't sometimes get every injury on Sunday night. But left tackle Walker Little, concussion. Wide receiver Parker Washington got hurt. Long snapper Ross Metzik has a back injury. Trayvon Walker, the defensive end, hasn't been able to practice the last 2 weeks. The right guard is hurt. The defensive tackle Eric Armstead was a late scratch on Sunday. So they could be potentially without as many as 5 starters against Indy. First place in the AFC South on the line.
All right, Teddy, let's talk about what you've got going on now through Super Bowl over on WagerTalk.com.
Absolutely. So we've got a deal. I mean, flat out. And look, I'm going to say 2 things right at the top. Number 1, buying picks is there for everyone. I get it. I appreciate you watching the show. I'm not going to hard sell you on buying picks. People are interested at times to get on board. And if you want to get on board, and secondly, this hasn't been my best NFL season, not by a long shot. Wasn't a great weekend. That said, I put the work in. I'm confident we're going to make money down the stretch. I've had plenty of success in the postseason. The Super Bowl prop reports have been legendary. And you can get it all right now. Every play, every day through the Super Bowl. There's no nonsense. There's no bait and switch. Everything's included. You get it for $199 on my page. And if you use the code CYBER20 at checkout, you can take additional 20% off. So you get every NFL play through the Super Bowl, everything included, $199 on my homepage, wt.buzz/TC, and then take extra 20% off using promo code CYBER20. I encourage you, if you want to partner up, let's do it. Now's the chance to get on board for the discounted price. I'm hungry, I'm motivated, I'm focused, and I expect to make money. So I get it. It's not for everyone. And then there's no hard sell. If you don't want to buy, it's fine. Please like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it. But if you want to get on board, today's the deal to do it. Cyber Monday. And we put together a great offer. Thanks to the staff back in Detroit for putting this together. $199 full season and take 20% off.
That is coupon code CYBER20 to get an additional 20% off over at WagerTalk.com. Today only before midnight. Teddy, let's move to the NFC South. We've got those New Orleans Saints that I mentioned. They sure look like they wanted to try to win that football game yesterday. They had opportunities late, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield going to be a go?
Probably. And that's the concept. Let's just say things. The Saints looked bad early. They looked awful early. And then they got a little momentum. And as the game progresses, you get a little momentum. All of a sudden, you're live. For a quit team, they're not quit. And Saints haven't shown quit. First year, first time head coach. Look at line here. Tampa, 7.5, 43. My powering number, Tampa, 9. The markets opened 8.5, 43 last night. And that's pretty much we're seeing 8.5 as a prevailing number today. 42.5 the total. Baker played yesterday, and for hang on, where's my notes here? Oh, there they are. Sorry. For like I scroll down, there's I have a game here. Clearly, it's out of order, so be aware. I'm going to have to scroll back up to it. And this, again, they're down 16-0 at halftime. They closed it within 19-17 and went for 2, and then Tyler Shuck got intercepted, and it went back the other way. And they got to recover the onside kick. Kellen Moore. I loved our guys' resiliency, the way they battled. We didn't do enough even at the very end. It was an unfortunate ending. There's stuff to learn from and grow from during that game. But you like a bad team that's playing with heart. That being said, Tampa, they're getting healthier. Bucky Irving's back, leading rusher yesterday. Chris Godwin, their leading receiver yesterday. Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan going to start their 21-day practice windows to return. The back door was wide open yesterday with Tampa's defense. They got outgained by more than 100 yards. They led by 2 touchdowns, couldn't hold it. but they were outgained by more than 100 yards and by 1.4 yards per play. The +2 turnovers helped them. Baker Mayfield, quote, "It's playoff mentality from here on out. We're in control of our own destiny, but it's not going to be easy." The Saints game might be easier, probably the easiest of the bunch.
All right, we're going to move on to Cincinnati. Buffalo up next on the odds logic screen. Going in rotation order if you guys are following along here at home. Teddy, let's talk about these two teams. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, boy, he didn't look that injured on Thanksgiving now, did he?
No, he really didn't. Okay, yeah. So I know what I did. I know why my games are always in the right order, and then yesterday I had them for time order when I went back east for Thanksgiving. And I didn't put them back in rotation order, so I loaded them in time order for some reason. So that's why I'm going to be scrolling around a little bit here for a moment. Cincy and Buffalo, 6.5, 53.5 was a look ahead. My powering number 6.5 for the Bills. The market's open 5.5, 51.5, and that's basically what we're seeing right now. 5.5, 51.5 hasn't moved a whole lot. Again, Cincy with the impressive performance on Thursday night. They were outgained by 1.3 yards per play. Baltimore had 5 turnovers. It's not like Cincy's defense is getting better. They still give up 6.1 yards per play to a quarterback that can't run. That and also was the fewest points Cincy's allowed all season. The first time they'd allowed 26 since anything less than 26 since week 1. Zach Taylor, that was kind of the first all-around play, a game we played all year. It wasn't perfect, but road division wins on Thursday night nonetheless never come easy. It started with our defense. Joe Burrow's back, and since he still went only 1 of 6 in the red zone, and Burrow was still only throwing for 5.4 yards per pass attempt, he was rusty. That being said, they went 1-8 without him. Last year, since he did pull off 5 consecutive wins to close out the season with a winning record, so there's a chance they could put in something like that together this year. It's worth noting that type of history. That being said, Buffalo, 51 for 249 rushing in Pittsburgh yesterday. James Cook, a huge game. Josh Allen took what the defense would give him. No completion longer than 16 yards. He was sacked 8 times. He was playing without both starting offensive tackles. So be aware with that Bills game plan or that Bills injury report this week, how injured that offensive line is going to be. But that much maligned defense controlled the flow completely. 4-4 since their 4-0 start. The 4 wins come against Pittsburgh, Tampa, KC, Carolina, all playoff contenders. Buffalo is one of those teams. I see Super Bowl upside. I see first-round exit downside. And I'm not sure, in a year where no one's real, the Bills fall into that category as well.
All right. Well, the Denver Broncos looked real for at least 3.5 quarters until that last series where the Commanders were able to take them to overtime on a 4th down pass. That was kind of a wild one if you were a Commanders backer. Now they're headed to play the lowly Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, look ahead lines 7.5, 40.5. My powering number 9. The markets opened 7.5 and 40.5 last night. And again, looking at that WagerTalk, the odds logic live odds screen, that's exactly what we're seeing today. 7.5. There are some 41s out there. I'll call it 41 as opposed to 40 for the total. So this is hard, man. I'm used to just going click. That's right there. There we go. Broncos Raiders. This is a rematch of that 10-7 Thursday night thriller / snooze fest a few weeks back. Denver's 10-2 so far. That was the Broncos' 8th win by a single score during that span. The offense, 4 drives of at least 10 plays, and then did nothing in the fourth quarter. The opposite of what we're used to seeing from Denver. 3 punts and an interception in the fourth. Bo Nix still 321 yards, only sacked once, and made the plays in OT. Of course, they won the game on a batted down 2-point conversion. Sean Payton, quote, "We didn't escape, we won. The journey of a good team season involves games like this, and then you believe you can do it again." Denver, not easy to lay this type of a price with a Broncos team that hasn't been winning by margin. As for the Raiders, well, the offense didn't work a whole lot better for Greg Olsen than it did for Chip Kelly. They already fired special teams coordinator. There's no one left to fire. They got an interception from 3rd and goal to the 2. It could have been worse for Las Vegas yesterday. Ashton Junty, they really tried to get him involved. 31 rushing yards, 2.1 yards per carry. Geno sacked 5 times. I talked about how it's an offensive line problem in Tennessee. It's an offensive line problem in Las Vegas as well.
That is one of many problems for the Las Vegas Raiders. You know who doesn't seem to have a lot of problems right now? The Chicago Bears, sitting in first place in the NFC. Congratulations to John Hoagland, one of our producers here at WagerTalk. I know he couldn't be happier for his team, yet there's still a sizable underdog here at Green Bay.
The markets aren't going to respect Chicago just yet. We saw that last week again. So look ahead line, Green Bay -5.5. There were -6s, -6.5 out there. Total was a split total as well, 45.5, 46, 46.5. My powering number comes Green Bay 3.5. The markets opened 5.5, 45.5 last night, and that's pretty much what we're seeing. We're seeing nothing but Packers money since 6.5, 44.5. So we've seen money for Green Bay. We've seen money for the under, which again, we talk about playing at Lambeau in December. We're likely to see under money. And, Caleb Williams in the passing game were not effective at all. It didn't matter in the win against the Eagles. The defense forcing turnovers every week. And note the first downs. Bears 28, Eagles 14. Time of possession, 40 minutes for Chicago, 20 for Philly. 0-2 start for the Bears, 9-1 since, 5 straight wins. Ben Johnson. These guys feel pretty good about what they just did. It was hard to go on the road and beat a good team like that. They have a lot of belief in what we're doing. They have a lot of belief in themselves. They have a lot of belief in this coaching staff. So the confidence just starts to develop and continues to bubble over. Of course, they had 200-yard rushers, 47 carries, 281 yards. Can they do that in Green Bay? We'll see. Jordan Love wasn't sacked, threw 4 touchdowns. The offense had 0 turnovers. Credit to our offensive line for giving me time to make throws. His quote, "It's really the reason we were able to win the game. We knew what was at stake in this game. It's a tight race." Green Bay now 3-0 their last 3, 6-2 their last 8. Micah Parsons, another season where he had 12+ sacks. That's a 5th straight year. It's a big win for us to go where we want to go to win the division playoffs. This was the playoff game. We just to stack these up. Worth noting, impact injury for Green Bay, Devontae Wyatt, the defensive tackle, carted off the field late in the game. Matt LaFleur. It doesn't look good. That's a critical loss for our team and our defense.
Okay. Moving right along to a team that just lost to the Carolina Panthers as a double-digit road favorite. They are now taking on divisional rival Arizona. Teddy, talk to me about this LA Rams team here, how they bounce back after a loss like yesterday. I saw a very close snippet of the game, right? I'm watching Red Zone. We got people over. And I literally turned to my buddy CT. I go, the Rams are going to lose this game. He goes, relax. It's the first quarter. But it was such a prolific touchdown pass by Bryce Young that when he just celebrated, you could just tell that the momentum had swung. Talk to me about this Rams team and how they bounce back here. Arizona, I know we've been talking about all season long that basically they're going to clean house after this year. No more Kyler Murray, no more Gannon. What do teams make of stuff like that?
Sure. First, I want to thank all you guys who are watching live. Nearly 2,000 of you right now. We appreciate you. We appreciate the likes, the comments, and the follows very, very much. Thank you. When it comes to the Rams and the Cardinals, look at the line here, 8.5, 47.5. LA favored. My powering number is the Rams 9.5. The market's open 7.5 and 48. The 7.5s, there's still some out there. Let's do one more emergency betting alert. This is real. One more. If you like the Rams, I bet them sooner rather than later. Again, my number is 9.5. The market's open 7.5. There are still 7.5s out there. The markets have moved. Markets are moving to 8. So if you want LA, lay 7.5. The current number, that'll be the best you're likely to get. Byron Young after the game said it was a humbling experience. Quote, "I just feel like this is a wake-up call, something you just need to learn from. I definitely think it's something we needed, but I don't look at it as a bad thing. I just look at that as motivation, something I'm glad it happened. We needed this." Jared Verse. I don't think we came in as high as we should have. I didn't think we do the things we need to do. Too many people thought of this game as one of those games where you just kind of jump out of your gaps, do what you have to do. That's not what it is. It doesn't matter. We've got to be better than that. Matthew Stafford, quote, "Obviously, we're not going to win a whole lot of games when I turn it over 3 times. It hasn't been an issue, and I don't expect it to be moving forward." So Stafford saying, pay attention to us. We'll be fine. We're motivated this week. And Arizona, I'll give Arizona credit. Jacoby Brissett was brilliant again yesterday. 300 passing yards. They didn't quit. They were down 17-3. His only interception, you can't blame him for that pass, man. That was an unbelievable play. 7 different receivers for Arizona caught at least 2 passes. They opened up for Bam Knight. Bam Knight got 5.6 yards per rush. They outgained Tampa by 100 yards. They had 1.4 yards per play. They've outgained their opponents 5 times in their 9 losses. And, of course, they continue to find ways to lose games tight. They did that again yesterday, and they do that again here. The emergency betting alert for the LA Rams won't help you a whole lot because Arizona's hanging tough. But I feel like at some point the Cardinals are going to let go of the rope a little bit, but they haven't yet. And we have to give credit to Jonathan Gannon and his staff for keeping them competitive. Even yesterday in a spot where they easily could have laid down. Brissett was solid. The defense was solid. And in many ways, Arizona was the better 2 teams, even though they did not win the game in straight-up fashion.
Teddy, one of the only teams that I was right about to start this NFL season was the Kansas City Chiefs. Looks like I'm going to cash that under 11.5 wins, and hopefully they don't make the playoffs at 3-1. The Houston Texans, on the other hand, were a team that I kind of wasn't sure what we're going to see from year 3 of CJ Stroud. Waltzed in to divisional rival Indianapolis with a nice win, yet Kansas City still a 3.5-point favorite here at Arrowhead.
Yeah, exactly. Look ahead line, they were 4.5/5/5.5, total 42.5. My powering numbers, the Chiefs minus 3.5. The market's open 3.5, 42.5 last night. And what are we seeing today? 3.5, 42/41.5. So a little bit of money coming for the under in this ballgame. I'm not anticipating that to be they're very comfortable betting the Houston games under every single week. Of course, CJ Stroud came back yesterday. D'Amico Ryan's quote overall for him coming back, not having played in a few weeks, did a really nice job. I'm excited to see how he continues to progress. Stroud said he was a little rusty. Quote, I feel like I knocked off some rust and am back rolling. We're super dangerous. We lost some close games against some really good teams. We can find a way to win some close games after Thanksgiving, put ourselves in position to do whatever we want. I thought I did a really good job of taking what the defense was giving me. That's the type of team we have. I don't have to be Superman all the time. And obviously Houston's defense, another dominant performance. Kansas City, well, they're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in right now. They're not going to win the division. 9 years straight of winning the division. That's bye-bye right now. 7-year string of AFC championship games. Well, you got to make the playoffs in order to do that. And worth noting, the 3 teams that entered the weekend in the wild card spots in the AFC, that's the Chargers, the Jags, and the Bills, they've all beaten the Chiefs head-to-head. So they don't get a tiebreaker if it comes to that. And, of course, we talked about it a lot. 12-0 in one-score games last year. This year, they're 1-6 in one-score games. Another 10 penalties showing. The defense had no sacks against Dak Prescott. They went 3 of 3 on 4th downs. They didn't turn the ball over, and they still lost. And, by the way, they also lost 2 more offensive linemen to injuries. Jawan Taylor got hurt. Josh Simmons got hurt. And they're already without Trey Smith. So that injury report for the Chiefs OL is something to definitely pay attention to this week before you lay points with them. Mahomes, quote, you got to win every game now and hope that's enough. We're going to play a lot of good teams coming up. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to have to win them all. That's got to be the mindset when we step into the training facility when we get back to Kansas City.
Okay, before we get into Monday Night Football, I wanted to thank all of you guys for hanging out with us here every single Monday. Almost 2,000 of you watching live. You guys are in the comment section. We appreciate you. Jump in, have a question for us. We will try to get it answered. Teddy covers, before you break down Monday Night Football, anything you'd like to add?
Well, yeah, let's talk about what we got going tonight over at WagerTalk.com. Right now, I've got just single NBA best bet. I talked earlier in the show about what I don't want to do, why I didn't want to get involved in Monday Night Football for tonight. So it's a pass for me on the football side of the equation. We do have an NBA bet available. And, of course, Cyber Monday deals all over WagerTalk.com. Use promo code Cyber20, and you'll take 20% off a whole bunch of things, including NFL full season through the Super Bowl, which you can get right now at a discounted price for $199 on my homepage. Check it out if you like. What else am I supposed to promote, Kel? What do you got for me?
I think that's pretty much it, unless, of course, you're looking to partner with Teddy for both college football and NFL. We've still got a little bit of college football left, of course, through the national championship bowl season. Teddy $2.99. Get the rest of college football and NFL through the Super Bowl for only $299. That is good through midnight tonight. And I'm sure if you use coupon code Cyber20, you might be able to get a discount on that one as well. Let's hit Monday Night Football before we leave it to Steve Merrill and Wager Talk today. He's over there filling in for Andy Lang. Our producer, well, Dan Alexander, probably did not enjoy Black Friday as much as some of us did, but the Philadelphia Eagles off that loss to the Chicago Bears. Now they are road favorites headed into Los Angeles. Teddy, why? I have a serious question here. Is it because we know the Eagles fans travel? We know SoFi is going to be 50% Eagles fans, or are the Eagles really power rated that much higher than the Chargers?
Let's talk about it. Look ahead line. Philly minus 2.5. And the total was there were 42.5, 43s, 43.5 out there. My party number has Philly minus 1. So clearly I'm with you conceptually on this. And it's really Philly minus 0.5, Philly minus 1. The market's open 3. There were 3.5s out there last night. The 3.5s are gone now. It's 3. Total down to 40.5. So we have seen significant under money for this ball game. Respect for Philly's defense, not so much for their offense. Respect for the Chargers defense, not so much for their offense. But the defending champs, it's not like this team is a disaster. It's not, people are very, very worried about Philadelphia. And Chicago ran for 281 yards against them. They were dominant on the ground. Let's not forget that the weekday games where teams aren't as prepped, weird things that happen. Saquon Barkley update. Last year he had 2,000 yards on 5.8 yards per carry and 13 rushing touchdowns. Last year, 2,005 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. This year, 740 yards on 3.7 yards per carry. The fans spent the game booing and calling for the team to fire Kevin Patullo as the offensive coordinator. Jalen fumbled on a tush push. And again, this scores 10-9 in the third quarter, and Jalen fumbles on a tush push, and that was kind of the end of it. Hurts back Patullo, by the way. Quote, I have confidence in him. I have confidence in his team. I have confidence in us when we're collaborative. I have confidence that when we have an identity. So I think it's the first thing that we have to establish what we've talked about. In 2024, Philly got off to a slow start, played great down the stretch. In 2023, Philly started 10-1 and then collapsed down the stretch. The markets are not expecting a repeat of that given the price here. But there are a lot of concerns for the Chargers right now. Their offensive line's really struggling. And that's creating, Justin Herbert's taking a ton of hits. He broke his hand in yesterday's game. And we don't know for sure that he's going to play. Quote, I did my best to go out there and take care of business. Thought we ran the ball really well, so it was cool to see. I'm treating as if I'm playing next Monday. In terms of experience, I've gone through similar things, so I think it'll be helpful. At the end of the day, you just got to go out there and make sure everything's good and you're comfortable. He said the hardest part of continuing to play was holding onto the football. They didn't take any snaps under center for the rest of the game. It was all from the shotgun. And, if you're playing it's just something we will monitor as the week goes on. And we're throwing 2 years ago, Herbert fractured the middle finger on his left hand in a game against the Raiders, and they played out of shotgun when he did that. LA likely to continue doing that here against Philadelphia. But you make the right point. It's going to be all Eagles games. And, of course, Dan Alexander says he's going to the game, and he has a 4-0 straight up and against the spread record in LA games, and that's the only trend that matters. Dan, when you go, who wins and covers?
We have, Teddy, a 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in games featuring my teams in LA. So it's the only trend that matters. So throw everything else out the window.
I love how you don't have yourself on camera right now because I'm sure you look like a woolly mammoth.
That is correct. Although that's my usual state of being, to be fair, Kelly.
Well, we got the homer pick from Dan Alexander. We'll see how the rest of this NFL slate pans out. Teddy covers. You are the best. Thank you for playing through your flu game. I hope you feel better. Get some rest because we need some winners this week, not only on the hardwood, but in the NFL. Hang tight, guys. Wager Talk today is up next.